Hi, welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly recap from Reboot, Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck here with Matt Dietrich, and this week we have a couple of topics we wanted to bring you up to speed on. And the first is all about another partisan battle over something called Election Day registration. And that is when you have the ability to go on the day of the election, even though you've not signed up.
Right.
Sign up to register to vote and actually cast your ballot all at your local precinct.
And in Illinois, as the law is currently written, in 21 of the state's 102 counties, you can do that at your precinct polling place. You can register and vote in the same place. The law says that counties with more than 100,000 population have to offer this at the precinct level. Counties with lower populations only have to offer it in certain locations. So this led to a lawsuit in August from the legal arm of the Illinois Policy Institute, which is a conservative think tank. The Illinois Policy Institute sued and said that you can't have different standards for different people depending on where they live. If you're going to offer same-day registration at the polls to people who live in cities or more populous counties, you have to offer the same thing to everybody throughout the state.
So if you think about who lives or tends to live,
Sure.
at least in Illinois, in more populous cities, it's really Democrats.
It's really
more
Democrats.
than Republicans.
Yes, and those are if you look at a map, say, of the gubernatorial election results, you see a speck of blue, which is Cook County, and the rest of the state is red. And that's really what's going on here. You have in these smaller counties, they're predominantly Republican, but at the same time, you do have on primary day back in March, 110,000 people use same-day registration. So pretty contentious. Now,
So that's enough votes conceivably to flip any race that's out there.
Well, and also you look at a race like down in Kankakee, where State Representative Kate Clunan, who is a Democrat, she won 2 years ago by about 120 votes.
Right.
And if you have, that can be pretty significant.
Absolutely.
That can be pretty significant if you have, a handful of voters who are new to the process coming out that day. You could swing those races. So it's not that, this isn't just some obtuse kind of law. It
could have dramatic consequences. And so the Illinois Policy Institute's legal arm won this round. It's probably going to be sent up to an appellate court.
Right.
So the Policy Institute is obviously also very favorable and works closely with Governor Rauner.
Sure.
So they just won this round, but we have yet to see what the final outcome is here.
And we've still got more than a month before the election. So we don't know what the outcome of this ultimately is going to be. But it was popular at least in the primary. If things stay the way they are now under the current court ruling, what you'll have is in a city like Chicago, in 2014, when this was a pilot program, Chicago had 5 different locations for same-day registration. So you had these huge lines of people trying to vote and waiting, and
they had to extend voting hours.
Right, it went beyond when the polls were supposed to close. Now, I think the lesson here for everybody is same-day registration really should be a last resort. That's not how we should be relying on getting people registered to vote. It's not how voters should plan on being registered. So my advice would be get online now. You can do it online.
Right.
Make sure you're registered.
You can register online. You can't vote online.
You can't vote online, but you can register.
You should be able to vote online, perhaps.
But a lot of people don't know necessarily. You think you're registered, but you've moved and you forgot to do it. And your voter registration does not follow you around.
Right.
That's a whole other.
It's got to be a current address.
So
can't be at a cemetery, like it is often in Chicago.
So this
joke people.
this ruling could end up being overturned, and things could be normal with voter registration as the law is written right now. But our advice is don't wait. Don't rely on that, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Get registered. Go online. It's very easy.
So we also have some striking developments to talk about
Yes.
this week. The Chicago Teachers Union has set an actual strike date that's about 2 weeks away,
Right. October 11th.
right after the Columbus Day holiday. This will be possibly, unless there's a
Right.
last minute resolution, the
Second
second
one.
strike
Second one in 4
in
years.
4 years. When we first launched Reboot Illinois 4
Right.
years ago,
It was September of 2012 that the first one
that was
took out a
happening.
week of classes.
And so here we go again. Contentious arguing continuing. There's been more than a year without a contract. The Chicago Public School Board wants to take away their coverage, or they're making the contribution for teachers' pension,
Right.
portion of the pension payment, and teachers are balking at that. There's some concern about health and other insurance benefits. And Karen Lewis actually said that she wouldn't want to be mayor because it's a tough job and she doesn't think she could live through it.
It's,
So,
And at the same time that the Chicago Teachers Union is talking about a strike, and by the way, there were some education reforms that were passed at the state level in 2011 that were designed specifically to prevent
a
the
strike from
Chicago
ever
Teachers
happening.
Union from striking.
Yeah.
Because under the rules, the CTU has to have 75% of its membership, not just of those who happen to be voting, but of its entire membership has to vote to go out on strike, and they
That's a great point.
blew
yeah.
by that limit. So this is a pretty strong thing.
For the second time they've blown by it, so that part of the bill didn't work very well.
Right, and there's union news also on the state front.
Right.
And that came this week when AFSCME Council 31, which represents 38,000 state employees, they put out a 30-second TV and online video spot that's really designed to put pressure on Bruce Rauner, make Bruce Rauner look like the bad guy in their protracted negotiations over their contract, which expired in June 30th of 2015. So they've been working without a contract for more than a year now. And they put out a 30-second spot that's going to be running on TV stations that's purports to show 3 ordinary state workers, and they're saying that Governor Rauner refuses to negotiate with us. He's doesn't understand the work we do, the importance of the work we do, and this was an interesting development, I thought, because it's coming right at election time. We're getting hit with all this election advertising, but Rauner is not on the ballot, obviously. He's not up for re-election, and citizens don't get to, we don't get to go to the negotiating table. We have a representative in the governor at the table, but this is not something that people can really directly act on when they see this 30-second spot. But what it can do, and what I think it's there for, is to impress upon people that if you're voting for a candidate who is aligned with Governor Bruce Rauner,
Right.
in other words, who is a Republican running for the House or the Senate, this is our message to you. So I think that is kind of shows the tension that's mounting.
Right, and even though Governor Rauner is not on the ballot, he's certainly in a lot of the mailings and campaign
yes.
materials all over the place, because as we've talked about before, this is really all about Mike Madigan and Bruce Rauner. And so the governor launched his own new blog this week, so maybe he'll be coming out with a commercial before November 8th to counteract the AFSCME ad. We will have to wait and see.
Right, and one final thing on the AFSCME contract is it's right now waiting to go before the Illinois Labor Relations Board. We suspect that will be sometime in November. Now, Governor Rauner appoints that board, so the board can do one of two things. It can say, yes, the talks are at an impasse, they're finished, and that would mean that Governor Rauner's last best offer to the union is it's take it or leave it. If the union decides to leave it, then they can strike, or they could go to court and sue. We've never had a state employee strike, and there are a lot of members within AFSCME who can't strike, like state police and some of those safety type workers. But we've never had that,
officers.
right? And we've never had that in Illinois. So that's what makes this. That's why the stakes are high. In addition to the election, there's a big awareness there.
Okay. And so also on the ballot, there was a big presidential debate this week, but there's a lot more that hits a little closer to home on the ballot. And literally one is about where the rubber meets the road, to bring up that cliche. It's a question that asks whether we should rewrite the state constitution to put in a lockbox, so to speak, all of the fees and gas taxes and things that are collected to support our various transportation systems, roads, highways, bridges, L trains,
Right.
metro trains, airplanes, all those things,
Right.
that they can only be collected and spent on those things.
Because the state has borrowed
They have
hundreds
borrowed,
of millions.
in some cases, never to be returned.
And our roads and bridges are suffering for it. However,
You know, when you're setting your family budget and there's only so much money to go around, and you figure you have to pay the mortgage first, and you have to pay to make sure that there's gas, water, and electricity in the house, and then you also have to buy some groceries, pretty soon there's not any money left.
for your car,
Exactly.
it's time to sell the car.
It's time to sell the car and walk 10 miles to
Right.
work.
And the issue coming up regarding this lockbox amendment is, why are we changing our constitution to put absolute protection for our road money when we don't give that kind of protection to funding our schools, which have a very bad state level funding system now.
Right.
We don't do that to make sure that that the disabled are taken care of.
Right.
That's happening now because a lot of groups have gone to court and gotten court orders for it. Why are we changing the Constitution to protect roads when there's no constitutional protection of the most, education, the most vulnerable in our society? It's a
Our
question of
universities, students who need monetary assistance program grants, K through 12 as well as higher education.
Right.
So,
you're starting to hear opposition now from people saying,
Yes.
what are our priorities? I think the bigger issue here is, how did Illinois get into such dire financial straits that we're having this conversation?
right. But like AFSCME, similar thing, there's a coalition of groups who have pushed for this to come to a vote and to change the Constitution and support it. And they're making the argument that this is one way you can say to your lawmakers, enough is enough, stop this, and let's address our problems. Other people are of the opinion that this could actually just send us careening into a deeper ditch.
Well, yeah, and before you vote on this thing, you have to think about what it means when you change the Constitution. And I think a good
Right.
lesson in that is
What happened with pensions?
look at the pension protection clause that's in there. It was, at the time, it was put in there for the right reason, because pensions were not given much respect back then. But now look what's happened. And you can't do anything about that, short of changing the Constitution. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of effort behind that. And when you put something like this lockbox into the Constitution, it's going to be there forever, for all practical purposes.
Right. So there's lots to pay attention to. Those are just some of the things that came up this week. We'll have more for you next week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next edition of Only in Illinois.